When we usually talk about the Golden Age, specifically Baghdad under Harun al-Rashid, the conversation tends to drift toward the statistics. We talk about trade routes, architecture, the sheer volume of gold moving through the markets. And it can feel a bit like looking at a corporate spreadsheet of an empire.
It really does. It's so easy to get lost in the macroeconomics of the Abbasid Caliphate.
Right.
And you forget the human pulse underneath it all. We forget that people were living and loving and, well, losing their minds amidst all that splendor.
Exactly. And the source material we have for this deep dive today, it isn't interested in the GDP at all.
Not in the slightest.
We are looking at a specific narrative called The Devotion of Ghanem ibn Ayyub and the Dewdrop's Return. And honestly, looking at the notes here, this is not just a romance.
No, absolutely not. I mean, on the surface, sure, it has all the trappings of a classic love story. But if you actually peel back the layers of the text, it's a brutal examination of resilience. It's a story that asks, how much can you strip away from a person before they actually break?
That's what struck me reading through this. It deals so heavily with the intersection of fate, what the text calls qadar and, human agency. We're going to see a protagonist who is tested by literally every force imaginable. Economic ruin, supernatural horror.
Natural disaster, absolute political power, it's everything.
It's everything. And I think the mission for this deep dive is to figure out why this specific story survived. What is it telling us about the values of that time?
And frankly, what is it telling us about the nature of love? Because, spoiler alert, in this story, love is not a soft, comfortable thing.
Yeah.
It's a destructive force.
It's definitely not a fairy tale in the, the Disney sense.
Yeah.
So let's set the stage. Our leading man, Ghanem ibn Ayyub. The sources introduce him as the son of a wealthy merchant. But he's not exactly a Wolf of Wall Street type, is he?
Oh, far from it. And this is so crucial for the setup. Ghanem represents a very specific archetype in this literature, the generous prodigal.
Oh.
So when his father dies, Ghanem inherits a massive fortune. Now, a prudent man invests, right? A prudent man diversifies.
Sure.
Ghanem. The text says he spends it on poetry, the poor, and pleasure.
Poetry and the poor. That's such a fascinating combo. It sounds noble, but let's be real, it's also reckless.
It is.
He's burning through capital with no return on investment.
It is reckless. But in the context of the literature, it signals that he values beauty and connection over security. He has what they'd call a gentle heart. He isn't hoarding, he's circulating wealth. But the narrative punishment for that lack of pragmatism is swift. The money runs out.
Which brings us to the inciting incident. He is transitioning from a position of power to total vulnerability. And in this state, basically sliding toward bankruptcy, he walks into the slave market.
And this is where the plot really tightens. He sees her, quattro nada.
Which translates to the dewdrop.
Right. And the description here is so significant. The author doesn't just say, she was pretty. The text uses these elemental metaphors.
Oh, yeah.
Skin like moonlight, eyes deep as the night sea, voice like spring rain.
It's interesting you point that out because those are all transient things. Moonlight, dew, rain. They're beautiful, but they don't last. They slip right through your fingers.
That's a great observation. She represents an ethereal beauty that stands in stark contrast to the gritty, transactional nature of a slave market. She just doesn't belong there.
Right.
It's a clash of two worlds, the spiritual and the commercial. And Ghanem sees this immediately.
And this is where he makes a decision that I think most modern listeners would find.
Yeah.
Let's call it financially ill-advised.
To put it mildly, he spends almost all his remaining money to buy her.
He liquidates his last assets for a stranger.
But look at why. It's this aesthetic and emotional impulse. He isn't buying labor. He's buying her freedom, or at least trying to rescue that moonlight from the market.
It's the first major sacrifice.
It is. He trades security for beauty. He literally makes himself poor to keep her safe.
But then the floor just drops out. The transaction is done. He owns the deed, so to speak. And then she speaks up and says, by the way, I'm not actually a slave. I'm the daughter of the Caliph.
Talk about buyer's remorse. Or maybe buyer's terror. This is the daughter of Harun al-Rashid.
The most powerful man on earth.
The most powerful man on earth. She explains she was kidnapped by a wicked sorcerer and sold into slavery.
This shifts the genre entirely. We're not in a romance anymore. We're in a political thriller.
Yeah.
Holding the Caliph's daughter. That's treason adjacent. You could lose your head just for being in the room.
It's incredibly dangerous. And she offers him an out. She sees his situation. She sees he's broke, and she says, "If you free me and help me get back to the palace, I will reward you richly."
Okay, let's pause here. Put yourself in Ghanem's shoes. You are broke. You just spent your last dirhams. And now the winning lottery ticket is staring you right in the face. You return her, you get the reward, you restore your family dynasty. It's the logical play. It's the smart play.
It's the only logical play, but Ghanem, he refuses the premise.
He looks at her and says, I free you not for reward, but for love.
And this is the pivot point of the entire deep dive. If he takes the money, their relationship is a transaction. It's commerce.
Right.
By refusing the reward, he elevates it to a covenant. He proves that his devotion is completely independent of his financial state.
It's a massive flex of character. I don't want your dad's money. I want you. And it works. The text says they marry and live in perfect happiness.
Which in these stories is usually the writer's way of saying, wait for the other shoe to drop.
Oh, the shoe drops hard. The narrative needs conflict, and it comes back in the form of the antagonist, the wicked sorcerer who kidnapped her in the first place.
Right.
I want to dig into this sorcerer element. Is this just like a cartoon villain, or does he represent something else in the narrative structure?
Well, in these Golden Age narratives, magic often represents the chaos that human systems can't control. You can have the perfect marriage, the perfect home, but you can't legislate against a storm of black smoke.
Which is exactly how the kidnapping is described. A storm of black smoke intrudes on their home, casts a spell, and just snatches her away.
It's terrifyingly efficient. One minute she is there, the next she is gone, taken to a fortress on some distant island. It's the intrusion of the irrational into a rational life.
And Ghanem's reaction. The text says grief drives him mad. But looking at the source, this doesn't feel like a poetic exaggeration. It feels like a total psychological break.
It is a collapse. You have to remember, Ghanem has defined himself by this love. He gave up his fortune for it. He gave up his safety for it.
It was everything.
It was everything. So when she's taken, his identity fractures. He doesn't just lose a wife. He loses the only thing that gave his sacrifice meaning.
But, and this is why I love this character, he doesn't stay broken. Or, well, he uses that brokenness to fuel the journey.
Yeah.
He sells the literal shirt off his back, the last of his possessions, and leaves Baghdad.
And this begins the Odyssey phase. The text is relentless here. It says he wanders for years. We aren't talking about a quick rescue mission. This is a grind.
The list of obstacles is just exhausting. Crossing deserts, sailing seas, starvation.
And don't forget the pirates.
Right, the pirates. Which adds this gritty layer of, human violence to the magical threat.
It's stripping him down, layer by layer. The soft merchant's son who loved poetry is being burned away by the sun and the salt. He is being forged into something harder, something capable of confronting a sorcerer. He's losing his physical self to find his spiritual resolve.
So he finally reaches this island, and I appreciate that the story stays grounded here. He doesn't suddenly become a ninja or a master swordsman. He can't just storm the castle.
No, he uses his reality. He disguises himself as a beggar to infiltrate the fortress.
The humble entry.
Very. He enters the villain's lair not as a conqueror, but as the lowest of the low.
And he finds her, the tower scene. The text describes Qutr al-Nada as pale and sorrowful, but still faithful.
That faithfulness is the mirror to his endurance. While he was out there fighting pirates, she was fighting despair. She hasn't eaten. She hasn't capitulated to the sorcerer. It's a dual survival story.
They bust out, steal a boat, and head for Baghdad. And as a reader, you're thinking, okay, great, the climax is over. We're heading to the happy ending.
But the author isn't done with them. And this is where the theme of fate really just hammers down. The line in the text is so ominous. Fate was not finished with them.
It's brutal. They survive the sorcerer only to get hit by a natural storm. No magic this time, just physics. The boat wrecks.
And the cruelty of the separation is so sharp. After years of searching, they are torn apart in the waves just as they are almost home.
Wow.
Qutr al-Nada washes ashore near Baghdad and is found by fishermen.
And because of her lineage, she gets a fast pass back to the palace. Her father, Caliph Harun al-Rashid, recognizes her. You can imagine the relief there. The lost princess is back.
But notice her condition. She is safe, she is in luxury, but she refuses to speak. She refuses to eat. She effectively goes on a hunger strike until she knows Ghanem is alive.
So the palace means nothing to her.
Nothing. It's a callback to Ghanem's earlier choice. Money meant nothing to him without her. Now power means nothing to her without him. They really are perfectly matched in their values.
Meanwhile, Ghanem's fate is significantly less royal.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't get the VIP treatment. He washes up half-drowned, gets picked up by a passing ship, and eventually dumped back in Baghdad. But he's unrecognizable.
The description is ragged, thin, and broken-hearted. He is returned to the city where he was once a wealthy heir, but now he is a beggar sitting in the dirt by the Tigris River.
It's a full circle. He started at the very top, and now he is at the absolute bottom.
Yeah.
And he's just sitting there weeping. It's such a human moment of defeat.
He thinks she's dead.
He thinks it was all for nothing. He's just staring at the water that he thinks swallowed his entire life.
And this is where the resolution relies on a very specific historical trope about Harun al-Rashid.
The undercover boss motif.
Essentially, yes. Harun al-Rashid was famous in literature for patrolling Baghdad at night in disguise to see the true state of his people. He acted as an agent of fate or provenance.
So purely by coincidence or providence, the disguised Caliph walks past this broken man by the river. He sees Ghanem crying and stops.
He asks her the story, and Ghanem, having no clue he's talking to the woman's father or the ruler of the entire empire, just pours his heart out.
The whole thing.
He tells him everything, the purchase, the rejection of the reward, the sorcerer, the shipwreck, everything.
The dramatic irony here is just delicious. The Caliph is listening to the story of his own daughter's kidnapping told by the man who saved her.
And the text says the Caliph was moved to tears. It bridges that gap between the ruler and the subject. He realizes that this beggar is actually the noblest man in his kingdom. The exterior is rags, but the interior is gold.
The reveal is the payoff we've been waiting for. The Caliph drops the disguise, metaphorically, and says, "Your beloved is my daughter. She has waited for you."
That phrase, "she has waited," that's the medicine Ghanem needed. It validates all the suffering, the madness, the poverty, the pirates. It wasn't in vain. She didn't move on.
So we get the grand finale. They go to the palace, reunited, massive wedding. Ghanem is honored with wealth and rank. He gets the girl and the money.
He does. He is restored. But the text makes a point to say that they live the rest of their lives in joy. It frames the happiness not as a result of the wealth, but as a result of their reunion.
The source material sums it up with this really poignant line. True love can endure abduction, separation, storms, and years of sorrow and still find its way home.
It brings us right back to that mission statement we started with. This is a manual on endurance. It posits that love isn't a feeling you have, it's a thing you do. It's the act of walking across a desert. It's the act of refusing to eat in a palace because your person isn't there.
Active, not passive. Even when Ghanem was weeping by the river, he was there because he had exhausted every other option. He had literally walked to the end of the earth and back.
Precisely. They both had to survive their own personal hells to earn that ending.
So looking at this whole narrative arc, from the slave market to the magical island, the shipwreck, and finally the Tigris Bank, what's the real takeaway here? Beyond just love conquers all, because that feels a little reductive for a story this intense.
I think the core insight is about the inevitability of connection. The story argues that if a bond is true, fate might stretch it, twist it, or submerge it, but it won't break it.
But you have to endure the stretching.
You have to be willing to endure the stretching.
Yeah, I like that. But I want to throw one more idea out there for you, the listener, to chew on. This is something that really stuck with me.
Go ahead.
I'm looking at Ghanem's bank account, essentially. He had to lose his material wealth twice. First, he chose to spend it all to buy her freedom. That was a voluntary loss. Then, fate stripped him of everything else, his clothes, his dignity, his physical health, during the quest.
Right.
He couldn't find his true fortune, which was both Qutr al-Nada and his eventual status, until he was completely empty, until he was a beggar by the river.
That is a profound paradox. You're suggesting emptiness is a prerequisite for fulfillment.
Exactly. In a world where we are so often obsessed with accumulation, more savings, more security, more stuff, this story from the 9th century is suggesting the opposite. It's suggesting that maybe we have to be willing to lose everything we think we need in order to make space for what actually matters.
That's a powerful thought. It reframes loss not as a failure, but as a clearing of the path. Ghanem had to be empty so he could be filled with something better than gold.
Something to think about the next time you feel like you're losing ground. Maybe you're just on your way to the real treasure. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Golden Age.
Always a pleasure.
See you on the next one.